Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Another exciting show, another exciting guest. Check this out. How many people wonder how to stay married? I know it's a fucked up question, but check this out. Imagine getting married to somebody and who you thought you was married to, what you thought you was marrying, wasn't exactly all it was cracked up to be. But you still love that person, he or she, and you're trying to figure out how to make it work. Let me be the first to say, sometimes it doesn't work. And today we have a young lady, beautiful young lady, who's going to take us down that road on, let me use this word correctly, let me get this right, fix your freaking marriage.
Yes.
The book, the author, the one, the only, Dr. Jennifer Bellingrodt to the show. What's up, baby girl?
I am doing great. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Fix your freaking marriage.
Yes, there are a lot of busted marriages out there.
Can it be fixed? That's the question before we get started. Can it be fixed?
Absolutely. And that's one of the most common questions I get at the outset is it worth it? Can it be fixed? I'm all about a cost benefit analysis. So yeah, we're going to walk through that, make sure that there's something there to fix, and then we're off to the races. We got a lot of work to do.
But it's a lot of work.
It is work. Yeah. Nobody said it would be easy.
That reminds me of a story, which you're going to talk about in a minute. But first, let's give you some praise here. Military.
Yes, 4 years active duty in the Army, still in the individual ready reserve. So technically they could call me up at any point. But 4 years active duty, some of the best years of my life in Arizona down at Fort Huachuca. So much fun, best shape of my life. Everything, had a blast.
You said best shape of your life, so that's telling me you're not running those calisthenics anymore.
Not so much. I'm trying. I'm trying for 2025, I'll tell you.
Okay.
It ain't easy, though, at this age.
20 years plus.
As a psychologist.
As a psychologist. Yeah. Wow. Specializing in couples. And this is what I find so intriguing. We're going to have a part 2 to this. We're going to have you come back.
I love it.
Personality disorder.
Yes, sir.
Been there, done that, and I know the effects that has. But more importantly, I didn't even think about it. The effects that it can have in a marriage, and more importantly, the ideal of not knowing if you ever been diagnosed before you get in a relationship or before you get married, and the effects that it has. But that's part 2 of our journey.
Love it. I'm down.
Before we get started, tell the viewers a little bit about you.
Well, my name's Jennifer Bellingrodt. I currently live in Arizona. I'm from Texas, 30 miles southwest of Houston. I grew up. The Army brought me to Arizona, and I stayed because it's freaking beautiful here. So met my husband in a bar in Waco. We were both at Baylor University. Waco. And a lot of bar romances don't work. This one did. He did the right things, didn't play the stupid games. So we got hitched, married for 23 years just a few days ago, and did 4 years active duty as a psychologist in the Army, got out, went into private practice, and still doing it to this day. I'm gonna die in this chair. I'm pretty certain.
Waco, man. Outside of Baylor, the only thing you know about Waco is that religious guy. I forgot his name.
David Koresh and the Branch Davidians. Yes.
Holy crap. Were you living there during that time?
I was not, thankfully. I came along after that. And now it's a whole different thing with Chip and Joanna Gaines and Magnolia, and Waco is a whole different place. It's grown exponentially since we were there, actually.
Wow.
Very different.
So let's get right down to the point. The book, Fix Your Freaking Marriage. You've been
Yeah,
married, congratulations, 23 years.
thank you.
Evidently, you know what you're talking about. But let's get right down to it. You wrote a book, so you had to fix you believe there's a way to fix this um a person's marriage. How was that so? So let's use certain without giving away your book, because I want people to read the book. So we're not gonna get all deep into it because then you won't buy the book.
Yeah.
So let's just use some tell me a situation that we as individuals would say there's no freaking way you're going to fix this marriage. Give me an example. Give me at least 3 examples that are common with people that you see that also resonates to the book.
So the first part of the book details 11 reasons that marriages generally don't work. And these are all related to some form of immaturity. I mean, the line across the top of the book basically says the distance between where you are now and the marriage of your dreams is only as wide as your immaturity. So listen, any two people can get along if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't, it's because one or both of them are immature. So we go into looking at those 11 reasons, and there are more, but 11 reasons marriages don't work. One of the most challenging, because I also specialize in personality disorders, I will tell you that some of the most challenging marriages involve one or both people having some form of a personality disorder. And there are certain personality disorders that like to end up together. They're drawn to one another for various reasons. That's a whole separate book. But that's probably the most challenging situation is when one or both people have a personality disorder.
Is that, I didn't mean to cut you off. Let's go back a minute because that made sense. They say opposites attract. We're living in a world now where vibrational frequency is the topic. Put out positive vibe, get positive back. But you're telling me something a little bit different. So does that mean like someone with abandonment issues will attract somebody that has validation issues? Or give me an example of the two that are drawn together without going deep.
That's the gist of it, honestly, what you just said. So, what I see the most common is a tendency for people with borderline personality disorder to end up with people with narcissistic personality disorder. Now, they don't necessarily have to be full blown, everything works on a continuum.
Right.
But a lot of times people with borderline personality disorder are very emotionally reactive and emotionally sensitive, and they'll hook up with someone with narcissism because that person will often be the emotional container for the relationship. And
Wow.
so they feed them, and then the person with BPD feeds the narcissist's ego. Now, this is not 100%, it's not a one for one, not always true by any stretch,
Mm-hmm.
but that's one example. Another example where there are challenges is when people get into relationships for the wrong reason. So they have abandonment issues, or they have their own insecurities, and they glom on to the first person who pays them attention. Another one is sex. People get into relationships because the sex is off the chain. They're having a blast, or they're partying and drinking and going out and tearing it up. And then when reality sets in and we all sober up and we've got our clothes back on, so to speak, then
Mm-hmm.
we're like, oh, wait, I don't even know this person. So the emphasis in the book is about getting to know your potential partner in a lot of other ways before you basically get naked, is what I say. So there are 8 types of intimacy. Sexual intimacy is the last, and you want to know somebody in all these other ways before you give of yourself in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other thing is, if the relationship doesn't work, you haven't given yourself over sexually, because that makes the breakup even more difficult, especially for women.
But it's kind of funny. More women now are wanting to just have sex. They don't want the attachment.
Well, so listen, don't get me started. I think that a lot of time we live in a very sexualized culture, especially in America. The media sexualizes women, it objectifies women very early ages. Women get a lot of attention for showing their body, and the female body is beautiful. I mean, let's call it what it is. But women get a lot of attention for showing that, and a lot of women feel compelled to give that in
Mm.
order to keep or get a man. And so I was just talking with a young lady this week. That's the same, that's what she's dealing with. She keeps getting into these relationships and she has sex right away. And then, the guy has his conquest, so to speak, and he's off to the next one. And again, not every single man is this way, but these women very often feel compelled to do that. And my husband always said, listen, there's the girl you bring home and there's the girl you bring home to mama. Those are
Yeah.
two different people.
Yeah. But when you look at social media, and I'm not trying to justify anything, so I don't want the viewers to say anything out of the norm. This is about education and understanding.
Sure.
I see more women wanting to be validated on social media, and it's stripped out. It's more older women that's half naked, panties, bras, half naked, see through. I mean, so how can you even get to those levels of marriage anyway? Nobody even talks about marriage. It's more now with the digital blueprint, the girl next door, MFL, and fans only. We've had some fans only on the thing. We won't even air their content because it's almost like degrading to listen to the story. They just do it for the money. So then you ask yourself, you wrote a book, Fix the Fucking Marriage. I mean, the freaking marriage. I mean, let's get real, Doc. Nobody's talking about marriage. There's no values anymore. I mean,
Yes.
you look at social media, I don't hardly ever see a woman on there that's fully clothed, looking professional, looking like the Lever the Beaver mom or something that we in society are supposed to be portraying. I don't see that.
Right. Sex sells. That's the gist of it. I mean, if you go on my social media,
Mm-hmm.
you will not see any of that. You will see fully clothed. I'm talking professional. I'm educating people. I'm a helper, right? So I have a different social media profile. But what's funny and not at the same time, disturbing at the same time, there are people who reach out to me and actually, they don't even reach out privately. They post it in the feed. Hey, you got OnlyFans?
Yeah.
What? I'm sitting here as a psychologist of over 20 years, married for longer than that, 2 kids, and you want to know if I have OnlyFans? Get off my page.
But
What are
how do
you
you
doing?
how do you how do you compete in your profession with this kind of social media? Where let's get real, women want to be validated. Women want to be that they want to have 10 million likes, 10 million followers. We don't live in that world where values of marriage and relationships matter anymore.
I know. You're not wrong, sadly. Yeah, I wish I could say that you were wrong, but that's my whole thing with the book and with the work that I do. I have online training that people can access that's all about getting your head right. Love yourself first. As cliche as that sounds, it's cliche because it's true. Love yourself first and feel good in your own skin with your clothes on before you try to get into a relationship. First and foremost, let's get your head right.
Mhm.
Then you can try to, get paired up with somebody and try to make that relationship work. Marriage is two heads in one relationship. Okay, let's just think about the math of that.
Mhm.
That is not great math.
Right.
That's difficult math. But if we have a solid foundation and it's not all about the wrong things, water seeks its own level. So if I want to go out there and I want to put myself out there in all of these ways that are, scantily clad or showing all of this and saying these things and being provocative and, all of that, you're gonna get what you give. So if you put those things out there, that's going to attract a certain kind of person. So you have to be very careful about what you put out there. I mean, I have a teenage daughter. I'm watching her go through this and talking with her about modesty and being appropriate and drawing people to you for the right reasons, not the wrong ones.
Let me ask you a question. You've been married 23 years.
Yeah.
Your book is based on experience, but with experience also comes the ability to understand that life keeps moving and keeps evolving, and we're now evolved into the digital blueprint. You mentioned some key factors with the things that people resonate. When you saw your husband, your current husband, in a bar, the and you already know where I'm about to go with this. Most people say you don't date people in bars, and I don't see you really dating someone from a bar set. So I would take it your maturity level at that time wasn't where it is today. So to go back, you met him in the bar. What did you find interested in him? Because you mentioned some key things. You mentioned some things that deal with personality. What was it that made you decide that you wanted to marry him? And was it an easy transition as you got older? What did you see personality wise with both of you that you had to straighten out? Was he willing to accept what you saw in him, and were you willing to accept what you saw him to get to where you at? Because once again, you wasn't at that level then as you are now.
Yeah, fair question. So yeah, I was in my 20s back then. um, and it was a country and western bar, so he asked me to dance. That's where it started.
That's where it
And
starts.
yeah, and then he asked for my number at the end of the night, and I was like, you know what? Here's what's gonna. This was my internal dialogue. Sure, you can have my number. As soon as you figure out that I'm not going to sleep with you, you'll be gone. By God's grace, he stuck around when that didn't happen. And he also didn't play any games. That whole wait 3 days before you call her, that's just a bunch of BS. I don't buy into that. So
Mm.
I wanted someone who broke the mold. He didn't play the games. He was polite. He was self assured without being cocky or arrogant. He was respectful. Just basic characteristics and just really getting to know each other. We spent a lot of time together in the beginning, just getting to know each other. And that, over time, yeah, we change. We're different people. We grow. We were in our 20s. Obviously, this is, several years later, decades later. And we've learned some things along the way. We've learned about, the power differential and who's responsible for what. And really, whatever it is, again, if you have the maturity or you can learn it, then you can talk about whatever that is. Raising kids, what are we doing with our money? What are we doing with our faith, our spirituality? What are those beliefs? What do we enjoy doing together? As you evolve as people, which we should be growing and changing and evolving until we die. If you're not growing and changing and bettering yourself, you're already dead as far as I'm concerned. So that should be happening, but you have to be able to talk about it as you go. Hey, I don't love it when you do this. Or, hey, when this happens, this is how it impacts me. Can we talk about that?
Mm.
So it's all about being mature in terms of knowing how to speak to each other or being willing to learn how to speak to each other.
Now let's take
And
the people down a realistic viewpoint, because I share with you, my therapist is one of the Steve Cooper and Dr. Ross Santa Maria is two of the greatest therapists I've ever worked with. And the one thing I remember telling him was, I need to know, you need to be you got to have just as much authenticity with me as you expect me to give to you.
Mhm.
So you wrote a book, Freaks to Fucking Marriage. 20 years old, you get married. I don't want the people to think that your whole life was a bed of roses at 20 years old. What was the challenges that you had to deal with, realistic challenges that may or may not made you decide, or him, to get a divorce, that you said that's fixed the marriage?
Yeah, so I think some of the most challenging issues in relationships, excuse me, are money, sex, kids, division of labor. And so I think money, we had to establish, we merged our finances and we had to establish like who's responsible for what are we allowed to do with the money? What's our cutoff, our spending threshold before we need to talk to each other about it? Like just laying down rules and having boundaries in those areas. In terms of intimacy, if we felt disconnected, we had to talk about that. It's not necessarily stuff you want to hear, but you got to be grown enough to hear it and say, okay, let's use this as a catalyst to better ourselves and our relationship. Let's not let it destroy us. Raising kids, we had different ideas about consequences and discipline and boundaries, and we had to talk about that. Hey, I think we should do this. You know what? I don't agree. I think that's too harsh, or that's not harsh enough. We should do this. And we talk and we negotiate. That's really what it is. If you think about two heads in one relationship, it's a constant, evolving, ongoing negotiation. And it should be a compromise. So no person should have to sacrifice all the time. Right. And so I think we knew that going in, and we loved each other enough that whatever it was that came up, how to deal with family, how to set boundaries with family, the kids, the money, all of those things, we agreed that we were going to talk about it. And we didn't always do it perfectly. Sometimes it was ugly, I'm not going to lie. But I had certain expectations and boundaries, right? You lay a hand on me, I'm gone. You cheat on me, it's questionable whether I'm going to stick around or not. Sometimes marriages can repair, sometimes they can't.
Mhm.
Like, let's be clear about what the rules and expectations are to start with.
Mhm.
And then as stuff comes up, stuff hits the fan, we're going to talk about it. We're not just going to throw in the towel. We have a covenant marriage. We believe in the institution of marriage. And we went into it, in front of God and everybody kind of thing. And so we knew that whatever was going to happen, unless it was something egregious, violent, terrible, we were going to stick it out. We just had to get through it.
You mentioned, I've always been a firm believer that two of the main reasons that relationships falter, and I'm not a therapist, nor do I play one, but I can give advice,
Sure. Yeah.
is money, infidelity, and sex. Not in any particular order.
Mhm.
And I'm a firm believer that we see first with our eyes, because we're creatures. We women like strong men. They look for that strong jawline, that muscular physique, whatever. And men look for the same in men look for the same in women. Communication has always, in my viewpoint, been the biggest catalyst, because the communication is never there. It usually goes from the eyes to the bedroom to not even, like you said, understanding. How do you get past this? Because it's communication skills and relationship skills. It's not something that's taught in school. It's a learned behavior that's usually taught by what you see, what your friends tell you, and what you see on television.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, to be fair, when you see somebody across the room, like when I saw my husband at the bar, when he comes up and asks me to dance, when you see somebody across the way, the only thing you have to go on, there are two things: their appearance and how they carry themselves within that appearance. So, how confidently do they move? How confidently do they walk? What do they look like? How do they hold themselves? And then what's their level of attractiveness?
Mm-hmm.
And water does tend to seek its own level. So, there's a mutual attraction. And that's really all you have to go on in the beginning.
Right.
Then you get over there and then you really get to know the person. But if you just roll with that attraction and you
Do you
roll right
really
into the
get to
bedroom.
know the person? I'm gonna throw some psychological stuff at you now.
Okay,
Do
okay.
you really get to know the person, or do you get what the person's willing to give you?
So another fair question. Absolutely. You're going to get what they're willing to give you, which is why I tell people that you keep sex out of the equation. Listen, sex is the easy part. My husband always says sex is like pizza. Even when it sucks, it's still pretty good. That's easy. One plus one is two. Okay. Sex is the easy part. Focus on all this other stuff first.
Yeah.
Get to know that person, keep sex out of the equation, spend time with them. I tell people, look, you want to know somebody for 2 years, preferably, before you marry them, and at least a year courtship at a minimum.
What about
Because
living with them too? I always tell people, you never know somebody until you live with them.
that's true. That's true. And most people can hold a facade for a limited time,
Hmm.
I mean, now there are some people who are, psychopaths and very skilled at being charming and charismatic for, indefinitely. But the average person can only hold a facade for so long. And then you're going to start to see their true colors. The longer you wait, a year, 2 years, the more situations you're going to be in together, the more situations you're going to see them in and see how they handle it.
Yeah.
See how they handle themselves. See how they speak to you and interact with you when the going gets tough. Like, give it time. People want to rush in and they're, like I said, they're either having sex or partying or both. And it's just so much fun and it's off the hook and we're just loving it. And we're going to go ahead and get hitched. And then they look at each other like, we don't have anything in common. Like, we stop drinking and then what do we have? Or, somebody is physically ill and we can't have sex like we used to. Now what? Right? Like, you got to build that foundation.
What is, I've had numerous counselors and therapists and couples on, and we had one that was married, and you're a therapist. I'm gonna go down the yellow brick road. I know many couples have done this, the swingers club, the pineapples and the
Yeah.
apples and all this crazy stuff to wind up. When I interviewed them, I asked them, what was the end game? What did you get out of this when it was all said and done? No more than a breakup marriage and you guys hate each other. What's your take on that, therapist?
Uh, Open
Doctor? No,
marriages.
no. What's your take on that, doctor?
So, open marriages don't work. Y'all can hate me. Your listeners can hate me. Open marriages do not work. Polyamorous relationships do not work in the long run. Again, it's one of those things, people are having fun, it's exciting, whatever. First of all, I don't think we should share our partner. Like I said, I married this man under a covenant. He is mine, I am his.
Hmm.
I don't share. I can share a lot of things. My spouse is not one of them. And so a lot of people think they can, and whatever, to each his own, no judgment, but we aren't built for that. We are built for relationship and connection. And we have a limited amount of attention and focus and concentration that we can give one person.
Well,
So,
what would you say about the people that do this? And I'm not a therapist, like I said, but there are some people that I've come across. It's it's um it's like a 9 to 5. This is their life, and it works for them. So, but you're saying that we're not built to do that, but some people would beg to differ. I mean, is there a scientific research showing that, hey, that can work for that particular individual and that may not work for this other individual?
I mean, I think that's true of anything. It's romance and sexual relationships fall on a continuum, just like most things in life. But in the long term,
Hmm.
it doesn't work. I mean, I've been doing this for a couple decades now. I've seen it countless times.
Yeah.
Somebody always catches feelings, right? And a lot of times, what's interesting is the people who often will go into these relationships have certain personalities. And again, probably another discussion, but they have certain personalities. And then they get it, they think, oh, it's fun, it's exciting, it's wonderful. They get into it. And then their partner shows attention and affection and
Mm.
is sleeping with somebody else. And they're like, well, wait a minute. This doesn't feel that great.
Mm.
Do you like her more than you like me? Is he
I,
better than I am? Like,
yeah.
somebody always catches feelings.
It's funny you said that because that was the same question that I shared with them. I said, "What are you gonna have? What you gonna do when you catch feelings?" It'll never happen. Well, it did, and boom, whole relationship. And they was on social media just crying. I'm like, what did you really think was gonna happen?
Exactly. Yeah. Again, what are the expectations? If we're going to try this polyamorous thing, like, what are the expectations? The problem is you can't plan for all the feelings that you might have.
Right.
Either you catch feelings for someone or you get up in your feelings because you don't like the way it's going with your spouse and this other person or these multiple other people.
What are some of the
How?
things? What are some of the things that you hear from women? And the reason why I'm going with this, it's funny. I've seen more women getting involved in the MLF clubs, and all these other things to get validation. What are you hearing from women? Because I'm not hearing women saying that they want to be married. They want to be recognized on a whole different ballpark, but you deal with couples as well. So without giving the names, what are some of the women trying to get here? Because even you got women, like you said, somebody reached out to you to be OnlyFans. We seen more women that are married that have with great husbands, great family that are over here, and I'm thinking, well, what just happened? Is the husband validating it behind the scenes? What's your take on that?
Well, ours is a very attention seeking culture. So sex sells, sensationalism sells. You see it in the news, you see it on the media, on social media, it's everywhere. And so there's a lot of attention and validation that people get for looking and behaving and portraying themselves in a certain way. And I think, when you're in your 20s, excuse me, it's a very different situation than when you're in your 40s and 50s and 60s and beyond. And so I think a lot of women in their later years are looking at these young girls getting, all this attention on social media. They've got millions of followers. A lot of them are making money. A lot of them are social media millionaires. They're getting all of this attention. Well, when you've been married to someone for a couple decades, that person is not necessarily going to be giving you that level of attention that you could get if you go and show some cleavage on social media. I mean, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, marriage is for the long haul. It's not going to be a constant, it's all about me show, right? But some people have so much insecurity that they need that validation. This comes from their own childhood issues and, way back, you got to unpack that stuff. But there's that strong need for attention and validation. And then somebody else gives it to them. Even if they have a loving husband and a good family life, somebody gives them that attention that they see these other girls getting, they're going to sign up for that if they don't get their minds right. You got to get your head right. You got to make it so that kind of stuff is not going to be alluring to you. Now, we do in relationships need to validate each other, reinforce each other, compliment each other. That's all in the book about how to keep that going in your marriage, because you do need to do that. I still tell my husband when he looks really handsome, or wow, you smell good, or you did such a great job with this. And same thing, like, we've got to give each other that. But there are some people who are just, it's almost like a black hole. It's like a bottomless pit inside them. There's not enough attention and validation in the world. And that's because they have these insecurities that they have to fix.
Let me,
It's
let
not
me,
going to change.
let me, man, we can really go deep. This might be a longer episode than what I expected it to be. Um, so we're talking about fix the freaking marriage. What's your take on we said something. We mentioned the bar situation. Your husband gave you what you wanted to hear. Then as you guys matured and evolved, you learned out different. And I'm pretty sure you probably said, well, that's not what you said when we first met. And he goes, well, what do you mean? Well, I remember you saying this and saying that. So let's go back to something that I'm a firm believer of, based on my own experience and
Okay.
my own therapy work, which I am proud that I deal with therapists. It makes me sharper to deal with people too, matter of fact. So let me go here. We got DNA, ancestry.com. We got all these things that know our genetic pool. How important is for people to know your partner's behavior patterns prior to going into a relationship? And the reason I say this is this. My hat goes off to my therapist, Steve Cooper, because I first have to recognize what my childhood traumas are. What do I do with my childhood traumas? What does all that mean? Because I believe first you have to know yourself. I know my ancestrage. I need to know my DNA as far as emotional stability. Once I understood my childhood traumas, I learned how to fix those and navigate those. But I remember telling him this. I want to know about other traumas that I may not have, that other people may inflict on me, because he shared with me, said, Dre, as a personal trainer, you deal with different personalities every single day and you know how to navigate them. But I don't go home with them. You know what I'm saying? I don't
Sure.
go home with them. But in the relationship aspect, it would be good for me to know if I'm dealing with a woman who has narcissistic personality disorder, if she has anger management problems, if she has abandonment issues, if she needs validation. This gives me, if I know your blueprint, let's call it what it is, your DNA blueprint, emotional childhood blueprint, I can now ask myself, after recognizing my own, he or she or whatever, I'm talking to individuals. Once I know mine, then if I know these other blueprints, now I have the ability to ask myself, do I want this in my space? And more importantly, am I emotionally equipped to handle someone who needs validation? Am I emotional equipped to deal with somebody that has anger management? And more importantly, to make sure that it cross that if I'm attracting it or it comes to, because we can't pick who we love, but we damn sure need to know the emotional blueprint of childhood trauma to know if I'm able to uh, if I'm able to handle it. Does that make any sense what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely. I think that's totally fair. I think, and that goes back to my whole point. Keep your clothes on and figure that stuff out. Like, let's call it what it is. Get to know the person. The more time you spend with them, that's why I said 2-year courtship, minimum 1 year. Get to know that person, because that stuff, if you hang around for a year or two, that stuff will bear itself out. 10 to 1, it will bear itself out. You will see, how does she handle emotions when she does get mad, because we all get mad. What's going on for her? What's that about? What are the triggers? What are the things? This is all psychological intimacy. And I will tell you, of all the types of intimacy, psychological intimacy, I would argue, is the most important. I need to understand my partner's psychology.
Yeah,
Right?
that's what I mean. Yeah, to me, that's
Yeah,
more important
anything.
than the sex, because if I'm going out with you and you do something bizarre, but this is the tripped out part, doctor, and maybe you can shed some light on this. Therapy is a taboo subject for anybody, and more importantly, when we don't recognize we even have issues. So how do you, if you had to write a prescription for marriage, I know they say go to the pastor. Get real. I'm not going to the pastor. I would rather for you go see, Dr. Jennifer first. Let me get a profile of your head first.
Yeah.
Why do you think that people aren't asking for a psychological profile of their mate? Is that intrusive to ask? I mean, you can ask for a prenup. What's your take on that? I mean, should there be a law saying before you get married, to avoid you can fix the freaking marriage before it even gets there, you need to do a psychological profile. What's your take?
Listen, you're making my case for me. That is what I tell people. Like, this book is not just for people in busted marriages. This is a primer for relationships. Like, this book is like premarital counseling in, 287 pages. Like, go talk to somebody, do some premarital work. If it were up to me, I would require premarital counseling before the marriage license is granted. Now, you can't, control other situations and people, different unions and things like that. But I think that there should be premarital counseling because, like I said, I detailed 11 reasons marriages don't work because people don't see these things. It is intrusive to ask for a psychological profile. And maybe some people can handle that. And maybe some people will be like, absolutely, what do you want to know? I'm an open book. Let's talk. Right. Most of the time, though, if you just spend enough time with that person, you're going to see what sets them off. You're going to see their abandonment issues, their trust issues, their insecurities, their immaturities, their ignorance. You're going to see all of those things come to the surface. For whatever reason, there is still a strong stigma associated with mental health treatment. There
Mm.
is. I've been doing this for over 2 decades. I have seen it improve.
Mhm.
Thank God I have seen it improve, but it is still out there.
What do you mean
And
when
there
you
are
say
people
you've seen
like
it improve?
you.
What do you
What's that?
mean? What do you mean when you say you've seen it improve? Are there statistics? Are there numbers? Elaborate on that just a little bit more.
Yeah, so I just see people with a greater willingness to come to therapy, to talk about being in therapy. People like you who are saying, look, I'll tell you, I'll be the first one to tell you, I talked to a therapist. Absolutely. It's made me a better person. It's made me a better partner. It's made me a better coworker. It's made me a better friend, whatever.
Mhm.
There's more of a willingness for people to come into therapy, and more men. Actually, women are far more likely to go to therapy just by the numbers.
What?
Women, I mean, I'm sorry, men are becoming more likely to go to therapy, which
Okay.
is, I mean, makes me so happy.
Okay. I'm letting you finish. I'm tickled with that. I like to see men going to therapy. Are they going to
Yeah.
therapy because are they going to therapy? Are more men going to therapy because they want a relationship or they feel they're not bringing something to the relationship? Why do you see more men coming to therapy now?
Well, a lot of times, to be fair, a lot of times in the marriage work that I do, the wife reaches out to me first, and she says, "I want to work on me." And also, my marriage is busted. So we start working on her. And then her husband, if her husband is willing to join her, it's because he has at least some modicum of insight that, hey, maybe I'm part of the problem.
Hmm.
If the men who think that the women are all the problem, they're too emotional or whatever, those men aren't going to come in. But those men have their own issues and another, separate discussion.
Mm.
But a lot of times, that's how I see more men is the women come first, they pave the way, and then the husbands will come to us. I say, look, just tell them to come to one session with me. They
Mm.
come to a session, they realize I'm not Lucifer in human form. They realize I'm not trying to gang up on them. This isn't like, a hate fest. They realize it's not that tragic, and then they're willing to engage in marriage therapy. It's
How,
it's challenging.
how difficult, I'm speaking from my own experience. How difficult is it for the parties to accept accountability? Especially, you brought up a key subject because this is usually how it happens, just like you just said. The woman starts the ball rolling, the man follows, then it becomes a bicker with trying to figure out which side the therapist is going to go on. The therapist has to train the two individuals to see the bigger picture. Once the bigger picture becomes clear, how often does the one party or both begin to disassociate with it? And the reason I'm saying this because I'm speaking from experience.
Mm-hmm.
Once my eyes were open to what this whole situation was, the one who initiated didn't like what was being said and walked away from the thing. And I remember the therapist said, off the record, they will continue to do what they normally have done. What's your take on that?
Yeah, history has a tendency to repeat itself unless you actively do something to change its course. And I love this question because it speaks to my approach, which is if I'm going to do marital therapy with a couple, she's going to come in for a separate one-on-one
Mhm.
intake over a few sessions,
Right.
and then he's going to do the same thing, and then we're going to come together. Now,
Hmm.
why? Well, you can't know where you're going until you know where you've come from,
Right.
because we have a tendency to get in our own damn way and our issues play on repeat until we fix it, until we realize it, to your point.
Hmm.
So I'm going to do a thorough intake with each of them. And the most time consuming part of that intake is a deep dive into family of origin. I want to know, and this is all detailed in the book, my procedure. I want to know What are your role models? Your male role model, your female role model, your marital role model. What's your childhood trauma? What's your baggage? Listen, we all have baggage. Whether you just have a little carry-on or you got a full-on cargo ship, we
Mhm.
all have baggage. I want to know what that is, because here's the thing. Wherever you go, there you are.
Mm.
So you're going to roll up into this relationship. You're going to roll up into 25 relationships. Same stuff, different day. You got to get your head right. You got to understand what you come from and how it influences your dynamic in relationships, because it does, whether you want it to or not. So that deep dive into family of origin is crucial.
Yeah, but most people come from dysfunctional origins.
Oh, sure.
My
Yeah, no.
father was not there. My mom was was taken from at a young age. There was no real role model. So when you're talking, I get it. You got to go back to those origins. But when the origins of individuals is met with so much tragedy along life's past and very few resources of or the word hope is in that landmark, and you're looking to reconstruct hope through the visions of the institution of marriage, that is highly unlikely to even work, even in today's society when everybody is filled with that type of collateral damage. So how do you repair that if you're coming into a situation from collateral damage? Your mind is already formed because you're an adult or semi-adult. I guess if you're a semi-adult in your 20s, you can recraft that genetic blueprint. But as you get older, that's hard to defragment that way of thinking with all that collateral damage. What's your thought on that, doctor?
Yes, absolutely. We normal is what you know, right? So what you grow up with is your normal.
Right.
And not always is that conducive to healthy relationships or interactions with other people. So people who don't have a particular role model, some people have neither male or female role model.
Right.
They have to learn how that affects them in relationships. And a lot of times it's related to feelings of abandonment or fear, anxiety, discomfort, insecurity, which makes sense, right? If you're
Mhm.
missing that important element of your life, you're going to struggle. Like, this is just
Right.
human nature, right? It takes two people to make a baby. So we prefer that both people are involved in the equation.
Right.
Now, that isn't always the case. And there are single parents and they do a great job and people turn out just fine. But at the same time, that can influence a person. And so the deep dive goes into family of origin, brings all of that stuff to the surface. And then it's my job to say, hey, look, here's how you're in your own way. Here's how what happened to you over here is making you behave this way. So, for example, let's say that a person grows up in a family where mom is very emotionally reactive. Dad is not necessarily emotionally available. Mom escalates, ups the ante, trying to get a reaction out of him. She very often, let's say, throws around the D word, divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And so this child is growing up watching this, and maybe the parents actually stay together, but divorce is on repeat in her coming out of her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then every time this guy gets into a relationship and his, let's say, wife, girlfriend, partner, whatever, is getting escalated, getting upset, he fears, because of these old patterns, even though she's a different person, he fears history's going to repeat itself.
I got you.
And so before she has a chance to even say anything, divorce, whatever, even if she wasn't going to, he's going to start throwing that out there. He's going to start threatening divorce every time there's a fight,
Mm.
because that's what he's used to seeing. And it's kind of one of those situations where I'll be damned if that's going to happen to me. So I'm going to do it different, but I'm going to do it really messed up. That's the problem.
I think most people are
Fix
doing that. I call it retroactive personality disorder,
that.
where they where they keep putting it on repeat and almost like I'm gonna hit you with the punches before you're able to hit me with the punch. Um,
Exactly.
before we wrap up, we definitely gonna have you come back and we're gonna do another episode about personality disorder. Not only the detriment that it has among the individual that has it or been diagnosed with it. But we're also going to talk about the collateral damage that it can have on families and relationships as well. You're going to come back and share that with us on another episode.
I
But
love it.
to wrap up this part right here with Fix Your Freaking Marriage, you felt there's a need for this. So I do believe that you feel there is hope in doing this if they follow the tools and guidelines that you have. But it's not 100% because you never know what baggage you're going to bring to the contractor, which is you, to get it done. But you can't help. Let ask the viewers, how can they get the book? How can they reach out to you, the viewers that are listening that, want to fix their marriage? And I'm not saying to walk away from your marriage. I'm a firm believer. Fix it. If there's tools and resources out there, then you know what, do it. If your taxes is fucked up, you'll call the tax people to get debt relief and all this. Here's a lady that giving you the tools, that's showing you how to do it. She's been married for, let me
Over
get it
20
right,
years.
32 years.
23. Yeah.
23. So I'm giving you extra. I'm throwing it
I
out
love
there extra.
I love
How
it.
can the viewers reach out to you?
Well, you can find the book, Fix Your Freaking Marriage, Practical Tips to Just Start Somewhere. It's on Amazon. Just type in Fix Your Freaking Marriage. It'll come up. It's the only book by that title. I'm on TikTok. It's Shrink Think with Dr. Jen. That's the biggest following that I have, mostly about personality disorders, specifically borderline personality on there. I'm on Instagram and podcast. Both of those are The Psych with a Mic. I am on Facebook just under my name, Jennifer Bellingrodt. I'm all over. I'm everywhere.
Before we wrap up, tell me about your podcast, The Psych and the Mic. What's that about?
So it's just a mental health podcast where I get on and talk about various mental health topics. I've done everything. I've talked about bullying. I've talked about emotional reactivity, learning how to control emotions, you name it. We have talked about everything on there.
The new Dr. Phil, Dr. J.
I love it. Oh, I love it. That'd be
On
a
all
dream.
on all social media platforms. Dr. G, thank you for coming on the show, Jennifer, and sharing such great information. Make sure if you're trying to save your relationship, your marriage, anything that has to do with getting in touch and better communication skills with your significant other or even a friend, make sure you reach out to Jennifer. This has been another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show.